The latest whisperings and rumblings suggest the New York Jets want to trade down in the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft. We'll explain why that would be historic. Plus, what would a potential trade down package look like? We have a couple of ideas. Let's roll, baby.
Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Hey, what's poppin', everybody? Paul Eston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for HeavyGashDarn.com, baby. And we're here for Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, also available wherever you get your podcast. Simply hit up the old typing machine for Boy Green Daily, and you will find it. Let's give you some juicy nuggets. It's only January 24th, baby, but people are talking. Whispers are going about and some interesting rumblings. And again, a shout out here to Connor of NY Flight Jets Talk, who had Rich Cimini on his podcast. Man, I don't know what the hell I was doing in 7th grade, but gosh darn it, way to go, Connor. And Rich Cimini told him this quote, "That is something you definitely want to watch for. Trading down in the first round," is what he was referencing. Little rumblings we hear, from covering the team. That is something you definitely want to write down and keep an eye on. About the potential of trading down in the first round. Now, ESPN posted a column yesterday where all of the NFL Nation reporters, those are the reporters that cover each team in the NFL for ESPN, were asked an important draft question for any team with the top 10 picks. So 10 reporters, or in this case, 9 because the Bears have 2 picks, spoke about the thought process behind the picks. And here's what Rich Cimini said for the 10th overall pick. With no second-round pick, this was the question, what does the ideal Jets selection look like here with the 10th overall pick? And he talks about how they have offensive line needs. They're hurting for short and long term at both tackle positions. He talked about Mekhi Becton, Dwayne Brown, Max Mitchell, Carter Warren being better suited. So tackle is the number one need. However, he added this. If Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu are gone, perhaps they could trade down for a second-tier tackle, recouping a second-round pick in the process. And that's what I've continued to hear throughout this as well. The Jets, of course, do not have their second-round pick because of the Aaron Rodgers trade last year. And to be honest, I thought the Jets would have their second-round pick this year because I thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be playing more than 65% of the snaps. So the fact that the Jets have the 10th overall pick, quite frankly, is just a miracle. And again, I would have rather given it up, to be honest with you, because that would have been pick number 32. Maybe not. But pick 32, right? And I thought they would have had a later first-round pick. I was fine sending that off to Green Bay for the Aaron Rodgers trade. That, of course, never happens. But I will tell you this, though, as we're looking at this process, a trade down seems very possible. Very, very possible as we've been doing this. So let me go to here. And this is what I did last night. I pulled out the calculator. So I think it makes a lot of sense that the Jets could trade down to recoup a second-round pick. So I pulled out the NFL draft value chart and I said, so how far would the Jets have to trade back to get a second-round pick? Because, you can't trade. So the Jets have the 10th overall pick, right? They can't trade to 11 and get a second-round pick for someone moving. So I tried to find the shortest distance the Jets would have to move down in the first round, but to have enough of a gap in the NFL draft value points, because every pick that a person has is assigned points, whether it's in the first round or the 7th round. It's got a value attached to it. And for those who don't know, the first round pick for the New York Jets is worth 1,300 points. That's what the 10th overall pick is worth, according, again, to the NFL draft value chart. So I was trying to figure out what is the shortest distance they could fall, and they could still get a second round pick, because that's what you want to maximize. And according to the data, so here's how you figure it out. So the Jets pick is worth 1,300 points. The lowest pick in the second round. So the lowest possible value is 270 points. So in theory, the Jets just have to drop to a place where the pick is worth about 1030. And to the point that was just brought up here in the chat, that is 15th. But here's the problem with that strategy. That team also has to have the right pick combination as well to equate back, because now there's chances that some teams can richly overpay to move up, but I'm not really counting those scenarios. So I'm counting it where it's close. So technically 15 is the point in terms of draft value, but the 15th overall pick belongs to the Colts, and they don't have the Ravens second round pick, which would be 270 as it's currently calculated. So as I looked at it, there was two trades that jumped out to me where the Jets could get basically proper value to slip. Here are the two trades as we get it. 17th overall, the Jacksonville Jaguars have the 17th overall pick and the 48th overall pick. The combination of those two picks' value is 1,370 points. Again, the Jets' 10th overall pick is 1,300 points. It would be a slight overpay by the Jaguars if they, again, we're talking about a value here difference of 70 points. So it'd be a slight overpay if the Jaguars did do this. And a 70 overall pick is the equivalent of the Jets' fourth rounder, actually. Number 112 is exactly 70 points. So they may have to give that back if they hold them to pure NFL draft value. So the Jets may have to give this fourth round back to also get the second rounder by the points. If you want something that is even Steven, as close as it is, then the Jets just have to drop one spot lower. That is the Cincinnati Bengals. If the Bengals sent over the number 18 overall pick and the number 49 overall pick, the total draft value, according to the NFL draft value chart, would be 1,310 points. And for the 10th overall pick, then the Jets wouldn't have to send any extra pick over to make that an even Steven trade, because a 10 pick is worth, and we have it here on the NFL draft chart, a late sixth round pick. So maybe the Jets would have to do it again for it to be even Steven, but that's not exactly how it works. And again, I want to make this very clear that it's not like the people in the draft war room have the draft value chart going, I think we're getting gypped here. There's a little bit of a gentleman's agreement, like everyone has their own draft value chart. They assign their own value. Like, it's not a Madden video game. Just because a team adds up all the potential proper draft value and it's worth the 10th overall pick, that doesn't mean the Jets have to send it. If there's a player on the board that the Jets want, could be Joe Alt, could be Olu Fashanu, could be Brock Bowers, could be any of these people. Just because there's the proper value doesn't mean the Jets will take the trade. However, so again, there's humans involved here. It's not a robot process, but that's the lowest the Jets can drop and then be able to get it. So 17th overall is potential, but the Jets may have to send their fourth rounder over to make it even Steven, or the Bengals just want something that the Jets have and they're willing to overpay slightly. So that's as well. Yeah, Phil just says in here, there's a premium to trade up. In certain situations, there are. It kind of depends. Sometimes, as some people would have suggested with the Will McDonald pick, maybe the Jets would have taken a straight-up shot just to move back because they didn't want whatever was there. That could have happened. So there normally is a premium, but it does kind of depend on where you're sitting potentially. For that to happen. But I prefer not to give up any. The Jets only have 6 picks in this draft, although we'll have another video at some point, I'm sure this week, about the comp pick formula. And the Jets are projected to get a couple of comp picks, which should add to the overall pile. It looks like they are projected for 3 additional picks, all late rounders, but still, hey, picks are picks, baby. And you can add those to the pile potentially as well. So we'll keep an eye out on that. But for now, as it currently sits, the Jets have 6 picks. So I prefer to add more picks to the pile, not less. Or equal, right? So if the Jets do trade back, I'd probably prefer the package with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Then you're not giving up a fourth rounder. You're literally just kicking back from 10 to 18, and then you're also picking up a second rounder, which would be the number 49th overall pick. Now, if we look at the old Mel Kiper's mock draft here from yesterday, when we're talking about potentially who could be available when certain people pick. For this, as I go over here to that portion of his mock, I'm just kind of curious the players he has available around the 18th overall pick, which kind of would be a good kind of litmus test here. for the Jets on that. Let me grab that for you guys here real quick. Yep. This is a live podcasting, baby. This is how it happens. So let me pull this up on Mel Kiper. We'll see if I can get to it. Okay, here we go. All right. The 18th overall pick for Kiper. Let's see what we got here for the New York Jets. Again, I think it's really offensive line. I also think it's excuse me. I think it's offensive line. I think it's wide receiver. Although I'm going to be honest, and maybe we'll save this take for a little bit later. I've got a weird feeling, guys, that they're getting Brock Bowers, the Georgia tight end. I got a weird vibe, man. You just keep hearing Joe Douglas say best player available, and then you hear that's Joe Douglas is ready. Hey, we're going to take the best player on the board. And then I keep hearing guys like Daniel Jeremiah saying, who mocked him to 15th overall to the Colts. And he said, this is a guy, this is Daniel Jeremiah speaking, this is a guy who has the talent of a top 5 pick, but it's hard to place him because of positional value. So if Joe Douglas is best player available and he finds a pass catcher, screw the tight end thing. If he finds a pass catcher, I think he might be tempted to give more pieces for Aaron Rodgers. Again, I think they need offensive tackle a little bit more. But if he is this BPA guy, I don't know. That gives me a little funky vibes. I think it's possible potentially for the Brock Bowers pick. But here are folks that are around the 18th overall pick. If it's straight up the 18th overall pick, so the Bengals could be looking for an offensive tackle, apparently, so they could be moving up for that. Although for the Jets to hand that on a silver platter to somebody, I'd probably need an overpay, quite frankly. But they have J.C. Latham going here, a very polarizing prospect, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. From draft people I've talked to, some people love him, some people hate him. So, again, to recoup that second-round pick would be massive because that could be another lottery ticket potentially. Think of Joe Chipman, who was just voted on the all-rookie team. So if the Jets can get a guy on, and this is an example, but, an all-rookie team kind of guy, they need as many pieces as possible because if we're going off the top of our dome here, you need a backup quarterback, you need an RB2, you need a wide receiver 2, maybe a wide receiver 3. You need another tight end. And I'm not saying some of that can be some of that can kind of be figured out with free agency as well, too. I'm not saying all these are draft picks, but, all of those. You're going to need tackles, guards, centers. I mean, you're going to need all kinds of things. Maybe you could get veterans in there for some of those. On defense, you're going to need a safety, probably some linebacker depth. What are you doing with C.J. Mosley? That's another question. Interior defensive line, that's got to be on the table for the New York Jets as well. So there's a lot going on there. From that perspective. But the 18th overall pick in Mel Kiper's mock had J.C. Latham, and that's this potential trade back scenario, which I like. And then after I get guys like Jared Verse, why not another pass rusher? Am I right? I'm kidding. Or am I? Who knows? Troy Fontenot, he's probably going to be the interior offensive lineman at the next level. Fuaga dropped to 22 on Mel Kiper's mock, and that's a guy a lot of Jet fans have wanted a 10th overall. So if you could trade, think about that, probably perfect scenario for a guy who's going to plug in at right tackle, worst case guard. You get him potentially where you trade back. You get a nice juicy second round pick, which is a top 50 pick plus. You get Fuaga. Not bad. Again, we're going by Mel Kiper's mock here for some potential guys that go after the 18th overall pick. There's Jordan Morgan in here. We talked about him with Dom C on Monday's podcast. Kingsley out of BYU is someone who goes here as well. Tyler Guyton. There's a lot of offensive tackles that are going in this first round here in this draft class. So, yeah, there's a lot of dudes. And Amarius Mims ends up being the last pick to the 49ers in the mock draft. So there's a lot of opportunities and possibilities. Personally, for me, I'm kind of thinking of like a Tyron Smith, like to expand your options. If you could get one of those guys in free agency, plug and play left tackle, then you got a little flexibility in the draft to do whatever the hell you want. All right, let's go to some questions. You guys got some questions in here on this trade down action. Let's see. The Who, they definitely should trade down, get an offensive lineman, wideout, and safety. I don't think safety would be that high on the priority list. I think they're going to retain some of the guys. 3 of the guys are pending free agents. That's Ashton Davis, that's Jordan Whitehead, and Chuck Clark. I think they bring some of those guys back, but it is a need. That's fair to say. Let's see. If the first few offensive linemen are gone, I agree, trade down and get picks in the second round. I agree. Yes, that's a viable strategy. Again, if Alt, Fashanu, or Brock Bowers on the board, again, as I'm telling you guys, I'm getting the heebie-jeebies. Doesn't mean my heebie-jeebies are right, but I'm getting a weird vibe that Brock Bowers could be the pick for the Jets, but it's very early in the process, obviously, but we'll continue to learn more. Middle linebacker, too. Yeah, you got Quincy, who's young, and he's going to enter the second year of his 3-year deal. Mosley, again, he's in the last year of his deal. A lot of money. We'll see. Is that a cap casualty? Is that a restructure? Is that a contract extension, rather? There's options to figure out. But again, that's a need like safety, but I don't think it's an incredibly high need, but it's a need on the list, absolutely. Matthias says he's been beating his horse a while for the trade down scenario. So, Matthias, all the credit to you, pal. All the credit to you. And it would be historic. I mentioned that earlier. Let me not skip over that. The Jets have never traded down in the first round under Joe Douglas. Now, as a fan pointed out to me on Twitter, I guess technically last year was a trade down with the Aaron Rodgers pick swap, but I don't think that really counts. I mean, I guess it counts, but that's not a real trade down. It's not like they're on the clock and they trade down to get more picks. It was part of a package. So I don't really put that on the list of trade downs, but I guess technically that did happen. But either way, the point is that Joe Douglas has never traded down. He's traded up. Elijah Tucker, he traded up for him. Jermaine Johnson, he traded up for him. There was guys they traded up for, but not back. It's not like they tried to acquire extra assets. It'd be interesting to see if that's on the table. And yes, Phil, as I just mentioned, can we trade down still get Fuaga? According to Mel Kiper's board, he had him going at 22. So it seems very possible because from Connor Rogers' analysis and these draft experts, again, I'm getting more familiar, dipping my toes in the water. Fuaga, from what I understand, is a right tackle only and potential guard prospect. Like people think he's going to be a right tackle. But like some people say, okay, he's going to be right tackle, but you could also do it at guard. So from all of that could drop his value significantly. And that's the other thing, as Sonny says here, 85, stay at 10, don't F around and find out, not worth it. Like, in theory, it makes sense. If you could trade down, pick up the second round pick you lost, have that pick back, and you got Aaron Rodgers, so it's like you all work out in the end, that's great. But if you trade down, you sometimes miss out on value on other guys. Now, this is an extreme example, but the Buffalo Bills a couple years ago had that, 10th overall pick. They traded it to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs traded up for Patrick Mahomes, and the Bills got Tre'Davious White. He was a fine player, although he's had a couple of season-ending injuries. So they traded back, got a bunch of picks. They got White, and hey, woo, it's great. But when you trade back, you open up the door. Now, there have been bad examples of trade-down scenarios on the other side, but there have been great examples of trade-ups. Julio Jones, the Falcons were at the back end of the first round. They traded up with Cleveland with the 4th or 5th overall pick. I think A.J. Green went first, so I think he was 5th with the Cleveland Browns and made that massive move. So, again, anything can happen. So, there's a lot of old Jets random or NFL draft trivia up in my brain, but that's the risk factor, of course. Joe Campione here. If Jets don't draft a quarterback, they will close a window that never opened. Yeah, we'll see, because here it is. We talked about it already on a past episode, but the Jets have 2 quarterbacks under contract for next year. That's Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson. I believe Zach Wilson's going to be traded. I believe that will happen anywhere here in the next 2 months. That'll take us through the start of the league year. I believe he gets traded for a bag of Doritos, and then the Jets wash their hands of it, which means all you would have is Aaron Rodgers, which means you, of course, need a veteran quarterback addition, of course. But then what's QB3? Is that a rookie, to your point, Joe? I wouldn't take it in the first round, regardless of who's on the board. But if you do that, right, we talked about the trade down, right, to get to the 18th overall pick, so Jets could slide from 10 to 18, and they could pick up a second-round pick. You want to use that second-round pick if J.J. McCarthy's on the board. Okay, that's a pick we didn't have before. It's kind of a bonus pick. You want to have it on a quarterback to be in the room for Aaron Rodgers. I think that would be – it could only help that young man, whoever it is, J.J. McCarthy, some people said the kid out of Florida State, whatever. Wherever you want to pick, that's fine. It can only benefit them to be in the room with Aaron Rodgers or Jacoby Brissett or whoever else is in this room. So I'm all aboard the draft a quarterback on day 2 or day 3. I'm about that. I love the bluntness of Jet fan. Draft results don't mean jack shit. You haven't been in the playoffs in 13 years. Same shit every year. Good Lord. Okay. Well, hopefully they hit it this time. I'm all about that happening. NY Jets FL. Theoretically, we could trade down, grab a second round pick, then trade back into the first round with that second round pick. Jesus, NY Jets FL. You're watching a lot of draft day, baby, which, by the way, I advocate for. And I'll tell you guys this tradition every year for the first round. So every first round is on a Thursday night. Every Thursday, I watch the movie Draft Day. It is a tradition for me. I love that movie. The Jets were supposed to be in that movie, which would have made it even cooler because I just love it from the draft perspective. But it would have been even cooler, obviously, with the Jets. But that is a tradition. I freaking love that movie. It's amazing. I can quote it all the time, and most people don't get it. When I just randomly yell at a grocery store, "Go get Putney! Putney! Get Putney!" People are like, "What the hell are you talking about, you crazy psychopath?" I'm like, I don't know. So not a lot of people get it, but I get it, and that's kind of what counts. Anyhow, so yeah, that's possible. If you want to start moving around all over the board, sure. If there's like Jermaine Johnson, right? Although they didn't do this trade back stuff, but they traded back into the first round, and then they wanted to try to trade back in for Brees Hall. So yeah, it's possible to move around the board. Phil says Bowers seems to be rising up draft. May go before 10. If he's there, I think we definitely take him at 10 if there is no brainer if all top offensive linemen are gone. Yeah, he could go higher. Again, obviously in Mel Kiper's mock, he went 5th overall. And there's been other people who have kind of mocked Brock Bowers in that range of someone in the top 10. So I view it this way. Number one, if he goes higher, great. That means an offensive lineman sliding. So phenomenal. If he doesn't go, he's I think Connor Rodgers called him or Trevor Sikkema. One of them called him. I think it was Connor Rodgers. I think he called him the third most dynamic pass catcher in this draft. He said Marvin Harrison, maybe a Dunze, and then Brock Bowers. I don't like putting words in other people's mouth, but I think he said something like that on the latest Stock Exchange podcast. So again, you want to get pass catcher for Aaron Rodgers? Sign me the hell up, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. But again, I'm fine either. If he goes earlier, okay, offensive lineman slips. If he goes as a Jets pick, okay, great, we got Brock Bowers. So I'm fine either way. NY Jets FL, we already had a polarizing pick in Mackay. Yeah, that's why I think, the Latham thing might rub people the wrong way. There's a lot of people who love him, think he's going to be great, and other people that are not so high. Like Dom C, high on Latham. Connor Rodgers, not high on Latham. So, but again, different strokes. Everyone evaluates tape differently. T. Rivera, Boy Green, what about slapping a franchise tag on Bryce Huff, trading him for a second, fourth, and a sixth? Do the Sam Darnold package. Sure. Yeah. I mean, that could be happening. The question here from YouTube. We will see. I don't know if they would get that much, to be honest with you. The 3 picks might be aggressive, but I am going to reiterate the fact of what I said at the beginning of the offseason. If I'm running the Jets, Bryce Huff is getting franchise tag. I'm going to find the $23 million that's projected on his salary for a 1-year deal. I'm going to find it under the couch cushions. I'm going to sell off one of my private jets. I'm going to do whatever I can to make that money available, because if you lose Bryce Huff for nothing, except for a comp pick in 2025, that isn't even guaranteed, because that's what would happen. If the Jets don't tag Bryce Huff and they just let him walk in free agency, he signs some massive deal, it could be counteracted with what the Jets do. So just because they let him go and he signs a big deal with another team doesn't mean they guarantee the Jets get a comp pick. That's not what that means. If the Jets go and grab T. Higgins on a $1 deal, those things cancel out. So you could lose Bryce Huff literally for nothing. So I don't want to do that. First, if you can keep Bryce Huff, amazing, on a long-term deal, phenomenal. But if you can't, what I would do is tag Bryce Huff, and I would try to find a trade partner before we actually get to tag day. That I'm talking to, if I go to the NFL Combine, I'm Joe Douglas, I'm talking to other GMs. Hey, you interested in a tag and trade? Let's talk. And then you kind of figure out the details ahead of time. Then on tag day, you tag him and then immediately trade his ass. And so the $23 million, quote unquote, is only on your books temporarily because that new team is going to acquire him and sign him to a new long-term deal. That's what I would do. So a second, fourth, and sixth would be great on paper. Sure, sign me up. But I want something of substantive value. So a second rounder, a second and change. I thought, maybe naively earlier this offseason, the right contender with a late first-round pick would throw it over at Bryce Huff. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, hopefully we see through this process. But we got a little bit of time here. We'll see what happens. But I like the question, T. Very nice. Matthias, there are a lot of really good players in the first 4 rounds in this draft. Make sure you're in them. Yeah, more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. Jeremy says, as long as we address offensive line and free agency, Bowers there, you have to get him. He could bury our Kittle or Kelsey. Sign me the hell up, brother. And I know the Jets apparently, we're going to draft Kelsey in that Geno Smith draft. Yeah. Let's see, Matthias. If you made 2 good free agent moves and had 4 picks in each of the first 4 rounds, you have a good chance of hitting on what you want to help this team in 2024. Yeah, that should certainly help, I would imagine. Yes, that should be a good strategy. Yes, a second in a sign and trade would be great. And we got PA. Paul, keep up the great work on our Twitter account. Appreciate it. We're streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, wherever you're watching. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button real quick. Show your support. That's a free way to support the show. Really appreciate it. Also, hit that subscribe button. We're getting closer and closer to 6,000 subs, baby. We've been chasing that for a while. Can we bring back some potential cuts such as Morgan Moses? He played well in Baltimore. Yeah, we will eventually get to the offensive lineman assessment episode. I'll have to do a deep dive on the free agents available, but that's possible. Sure. I love Morgan. Extend Mosley. That could be another option. I think DJ Reed is an extend candidate. Michael Carter II is an extend candidate. These are guys going into the last years of their deals, and you can manipulate the cap a little bit. So, Greg, that's a good question. Sergeant CVO, how many people are going to be mad about the return of Jamal Adams? That would be kind of funny. Apparently Jamal Adams liked my tweet. I didn't know that. I thought, I kind of was feeling crazy one night. I said, Jamal Adams return? And then people absolutely destroyed me. They said, you're an idiot. You're a dumbass. And I went, okay, I guess I am. And then Jamal apparently liked the tweet about me talking about a potential Jamal Adams Jets comeback. And I'm like, what? And someone screenshot. I didn't see it until someone screenshot said, hey, look, did you see Jamal liked your tweet? I'm like, what? So maybe, but I know a lot of fans are burned on him. George Fan from the Texans, that would be great. Mitch Morse, he's a center, which could, to your point, move Tippmann to guard. Tippmann was just on the all-rookie team for centers. I really don't want to be herky-jerky with him, to be honest. I know a lot of people floated out. Rich Samiz floated out on his podcast of getting a real center and then kicking him to guard. I think guards you can find. So I Tippmann was look good at guard, but let's keep guys where they belong. I think the Jets learned their lesson on the AVT thing, where they're going to find a spot for him, whatever it is. I think it'll depend on some additions, but AVT, put him there. Tippmann, put him there. I don't want to keep herky-jerky musical chairs. It's cool that they have the ability to do it, like AVT and Tippmann and stuff, but no, I'm not for that. I've heard a lot of people say that. I am not for that. Yeah, some mocks have Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy in the first round. We'll see. Not everyone could go in the first round, so, not everyone could go in the first round. Matthias, great movie on draft day. Yep. Do I want Fuaga or Bowers? What happens in free agency, Greg? As I get asked that question on the Facebook page, what happens with free agency? If the Jets do nothing in free agency, I probably want Fuaga. But if they do something of some value, I don't know. Again, we'll get to Morgan Moses. Sure, he comes back. Okay, let's go get Bowers. Let's get pass catchers. So a lot of people are saying this guy is a freak, Bowers, when they're talking about him. And if so, all right, I want freaks on the team, man. Although, again, I can't help but have nightmares about O.J. Howard, tight end, or Eric Ebron, although he lasted in the league for a while. There's Evan Ingram's, TJ Hawkinson's, Noah Fant. There's been success stories and non-success stories, but, those parts kind of scare me a little bit. But, hey, that would be cool. Like button, hit it, as he says, as James says on our YouTube page. Please do. All right. And Matthias, I just want to address this too, because a lot of people say, Paul, not that you're saying this, Matthias, but he asked this question for our audio only listeners. I can't see this. There's so much that happens before the draft, so many different scenarios. It's hard to know right now what we should do, of course, because free agency is going to happen, all these things. I love talking about scenarios. I love pre-free agency saying, oh, what should the Jets do here, there, here, there. Free agency happens. Okay, let's pivot and adjust. Now the Jets should do this in the draft. So I love all the scenarios. Some people find it pointless to do all these mocks in this time and they don't pay attention to them, but I do. I love all that stuff. So that's a fun part of it for me, is going through and playing GM basically with this from this situation. All right, everybody. Some great comments, some great commentary again. And unless you missed the beginning of the show, you can always rewind it and re-listen to it. But Rich Samani says things he's hearing from covering the team is there are rumblings that the Jets are wanting to trade down in the first round of the NFL draft. It's historic. That has never happened under Joe Douglas's watch. Again, technically that happened last year with the pick swap with Green Bay, but that does not really count in my mind. So he's not really ever traded down. And again, I came up with some scenarios. Well, actually, I have a full article up on Heavy on Jets here, and a little bit. I didn't get to finish it before the show started, but it talks about some of the trade down scenarios the Jets could explore, specific to picks and packages of what they would look like, and how the Jets could trade down and get a second round pick, but only have to trade down far enough to get the second round pick. So we'll discuss that as well. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you guys like the video. Hit subscribe down below. Again, the free way to contribute. Boy Green Daily is a daily New York Jets video show live every morning at 7:30. Plus, we have new afternoon shows every Tuesday, Thursday at 3 o'clock, assessing every position on the New York Jets roster. Who are they losing? Which free agents they could bring in? All that jazz. So, guys, make sure that you check it out. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. God bless.